Hello, I'm Mark Sullivan,
I'm Delaila Lugo.
And I'm Jason Kwasnicki.
and we're here to reap the spoils. We got our Monster Energy drink, we got our Timefall Porter.
I've got ginger ale, and no, I am not under the influence of anything.
There's no fucking there's no fucking ginger ale in that game. Wait, which game are we talking about though, Jason?
Death Stranding
Uh huh.
by Kojima-san.
Uh huh. Yes, yes, indeedy. But before you continue listening, Reap the Spoils is a Spoilercast podcast. What we do is we play the game that we just said. We played that game already, and we talk about it front to bottom, top to back,
And you
and
really
All
should,
up in it.
yeah, you
all
really
up in
should
it.
watch that back too, because not only does Kojima put his name in like 7 times in the beginning of the credits,
Yes, he does.
if you actually sit through all the credits, like there will just be random jobs thrown in that say Hideo Kojima.
Norman Reedus's personal beer trimmer, Hideo
Exactly,
Kojima.
exactly.
But yeah, before you listen to the rest of the show, go play the game. We don't want to be your first your first exposure to the things that happen in the game. We don't want to spoil anything for you. We want to spoil everything that you already know because the point of the podcast is to talk about things you already know. Really, just to have a discussion with amongst ourselves, and hopefully you scream at your speakers at things you don't agree with, or say, "Yeah, that was a really interesting thing you just said," and we
And
won't
before we
and
get
we won't
into
hear that.
anything, before we get into anything, I should preface, I am an asshole.
Yep.
Yes.
So, that being said, yeah, play Death Stranding, then come listen. You can pause right here and go play the game. It'll take you like 50 hours. It's worth it.
Yep.
Before we jump into our thoughts on the game, let's go over a very brief, by comparison, history of this game. I tried to truncate this. There's kind of a lot that went into the story of this game and how it came to be. As most of us know, if you follow games and you're involved in games media, at least like from a reader's perspective, and you've been that way since like 2014, it'd be surprising if you didn't know anything about this. But we're gonna go over it real quick. So, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's a little playable teaser that came out at Gamescom 2014 called PT. Anyone ever play that? Ever heard
No,
of it?
that
No.
game I can't play?
Yeah, that game you can't play unless you already
I
have it downloaded.
I never played it because I'm a loser.
Yeah, that's a shame because it was really good. And when that came out, no one really knew what it was. It's by a mysterious studio, 7780s Games or 78780 Studio. Well, some people cracked it that day, beat the teaser, and it turned out to be a teaser. Really, it just revealed a trailer for Silent Hills, which was a new Silent Hill game being directed by Hideo Kojima in collaboration with Guillermo del Toro of The Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth fame. I think he also did that horror movie Mama. I think that was what it was called.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You also
like-
did the one about the fish man, right?
yeah, The Shape of Water.
Uh,
And
Okay.
basically just very, very bizarre, unique film director. And the game was going to star Norman Reedus of Walking Dead fame. But, alas, things were already tumultuous between Konami and Kojima at the time. They wound up breaking up in late 2015 following the release of Metal Gear Solid 5. And Silent Hills was ultimately canceled.
Mm.
Del
I
Toro.
I bet you there's a pachinko of it though.
Yeah, I think there was a new Silent Hill pachinko machine released recently.
Yeah, Kojima did recently say he's going to work on the most scary horror game ever.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put a pin in that until the very end of the show.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
So, yeah, this made Del Toro very sad. He was actually collaborating on a video game in the past that got canceled. He almost swore off video games entirely. But yeah, mid-December time, it was officially announced that Kojima was no longer with Konami, and literally the day after, it was announced that Kojima Productions was reformed as an independent studio, a whole new Kojima Productions, completely separated from Konami. That formed literally a day after, in December 2015, just 3 months after Metal Gear Solid 5 came out. And I think a week after, there was that video with Andrew House and Kojima shaking hands, announcing a partnership that Kojima would be developing a game, I think at the time they said exclusively for PlayStation 4. Which is another thing we can get to, that exclusivity bit.
Those damn liars.
But yeah, then Mark Cerny and Kojima went engine shopping in 2016, January, top of the year. They started visiting a bunch of studios. It was all over Twitter. Kojima like stepping into all sorts of Sony first-party studios, and finally landed on an engine from Guerrilla, the Decima engine that Horizon Zero Dawn is running on. So that's the game, or that's the engine that this game is developed in.
And they showed a lot of love to Horizon Zero Dawn and Death Stranding.
They sure did. I actually, until you mentioned that, I completely forgot. There were some collectibles in Horizon, probably a few other things that referenced Death Stranding.
If you fully upgrade some of the structures that you build, you can attach a hologram of either Aloy, who's the main character in Horizon Zero Dawn, the little walker thingy, and the big long neck.
Yeah.
Wait, that's what that was. I was genuinely confused as to what the fuck these hologram, like they were giant dinosaurs. Man, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, so both games show love to one another. In Horizon, there were some Death Stranding collectibles, or at least Kojima Productions collectibles, and in Death Stranding, you can make some holographic Horizon Zero Dawn things. The tall neck is the one actually that I saw, and I didn't really build enough structures that projected holograms to really explore that feature. But yes, they both showed a lot of love and care towards each other. Fast forwarding to E3 2016, the game was officially announced with Kojima walking down an illuminated walkway. Everyone goes quiet. He says, "Hello, everyone. I'm back," with much applause. And the first trailer for the game was debuted, and it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
And no one really knew what to make of it. Of course, Norman Reedus is back and was naked and had a baby and a low roar song. So,
and all of that is explained in the game.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yes. Honestly, everything does actually tie up pretty nicely, but we'll get there. The game entered full development in 2017 with another gameplay reveal, an actual gameplay reveal coming E3 2018. There were one or two trailers debuted before that, the most prominent of which debuted Guillermo del Toro's presence in the game, not as like a collaborator or a co-director, but as an actual mocapped character in the game. He doesn't voice himself, but he did lend his likeness and motion capture to the game as the character Deadman.
Yeah, I don't think he speaks English, does he? I think he just speaks Spanish.
I think he does speak some English. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, gameplay was revealed at E3 2018. Again, really weird. It was just Norman Reedus walking around some big open landscapes and putting up ladders and climbing down ropes, and had some cargo. But we didn't really know anything about the gameplay. Didn't really know anything about the mechanics. We just knew it would be a big open world, lots to explore, and traversal elements.
Lots of big boxes.
Still, we didn't really even know anything about like the delivery aspect of it, the cargo aspect. We got gameplay, and we still knew very little about that game.
Mm-hmm.
But Kojima was, visiting lots of developers, showing off the game, and on Twitter every single time they would tout like, "This is next level. This is the most amazing thing we've ever seen. This is next gen, quote unquote." And then he did a world tour pretty recently, as of the last few months before the game came out, showing off the game at conventions all around the world. I saw on Twitter. He was in Russia. He was in other places in Europe, Japan, showing off this game. And yeah, then the game came out on November 8th, 2019. And here we are recording a spoiler cast for it a month later.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the history. I tried to keep it brief. There is a lot that went into the story of that game because it's just a very loaded subject, but it all led to this. So that being said, what do we think, guys? Game of the year 2019?
I wouldn't be mad if it was. It's not my personal, but it's definitely top 5, maybe top 3 for me. Okay. And definitely the most unique experience I've ever had in a AAA game. It's definitely in a very long time.
Definitely the most unique Kojima experience. And we also did we have recorded on a Kojima game before. I think it was episode 5. We did Metal Gear Solid 2. If you played that game, you want to listen to that episode, go back and listen to that episode. We were very positive about that game all around. We had very little bad to say about that game. I don't know that that'll be the case here. I feel like we all collectively were a lot more critical of this one, which will make for an interesting conversation dichotomy.
Yeah, I'm able to wrap my head around Death Stranding a lot more than any Metal Gear game, and maybe that's because I'm an adult, or because it's all in one game right now. Whereas Metal Gear is across games, and I was much younger when I played those, blah, 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 blah. But it makes sense if you really pay attention.
Something I will say is I feel that at the time of Metal Gear Solid 2, Kojima was at his most intelligent when it comes to game design, plot planning. Maybe not plot planning, but he was at his most intelligent, definitely with game design and other facilitating certain things happening and certain key elements, like certain themes being presented in an organic and creative way. This is him now, 2019, with Death Stranding. This is him at his most auteuristic level.
Let me jump in there because you said Sons of Liberty back in the old Metal Gear Solid days. It was him like kind of at his, but I don't know I within the past few seconds I forgot the terminology you used. That kind of at his peak.
Like in terms of game design, intelligent with game design and supplying the themes that he had, to present in like a unique creative way.
I would slightly modify that, disagree in that I've been ruminating on this game since I finished it. I have put a lot of thought into it. I don't think the problem necessarily is his skills as a designer. I think one thing we forget is that Metal Gear, both in its game design and in its storytelling, was relatively simplistic. As convoluted as the lore got towards the end, specifically in 4, he was still essentially telling like an action thriller with action gameplay / stealth mechanics. So the equivalent I would use jumping from Metal Gear to Death Stranding in terms of like movies would be, say, directing a movie like Die Hard or James Bond, and then trying to jump to like fucking a Christopher Nolan movie or like I don't know, like The Shining or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People were saying like Interstellar, stuff like that.
Yeah, like Interstellar, something that is like trying to be high art.
I think
I don't think Kojima has the experience. I think he should have maybe let this idea ruminate for a while, like build on it, and done something a bit more simpler and established first, and maybe keep this in the oven longer, maybe for next gen.
I won't completely disagree. I agree with most of what you said. He with Metal Gear, Metal Gear was always campy. It was always campy and goofy with these weird characters showing up, spouting out their weird name, and then describing their backstory to you, and then saying, "Let's fight." And that's always been like a Metal Gear thing, and we always took it for granted because it was always that way. And this is like Kojima for the first time since what, the mid 90s, the original Metal Gear came out. That might have been 91, 92. This is his first time doing, not his first time necessarily. So
Yeah,
probably his first
Zone
time.
of the Enders
Yeah,
on
and there was
PS2.
also like Boktai and there's others. So maybe like since the early 2000s, this is the first time he's working on something that's not Metal Gear. It's a long time. And going from that campy franchise that everyone knows, everyone loves, and everyone understands what to expect when a new one comes out, this was weird.
And quite frankly, I take Metal Gear more seriously than I did this story a lot.
I can't necessarily disagree with you on that either. But yeah, let's dig a little deeper.
And by the way, I just want to give like an overview because Delaila just, it would potentially be in our top 5 games of the year. I wouldn't put it in my games of the year. I would say my initial reaction has been vastly tempered the more I think about it and having actually finished the game. I kind of feel about this game the same way I felt about Breath of the Wild or Red Dead 2. It's definitely not worth a lot of the critical praise it's been got. When you actually put a lot of critical analysis on it. That being said, it's not an awful game. Like it's still an above average game.
I don't even know that I don't necessarily agree with that because I really genuinely loved this game, but I like if we look at the critical reception of this game as a whole, it's not all positive. This is like a pretty polarizing game, and just because
I definitely think there's a Kojima bump going on, as they say,
just
for a lot of critics.
That's very possible. It's very plausible. But if you even just ignore review scores, like I've listened to other podcasts talk about this game, not a lot of critics like at certain outlets and stuff are completely high on this game.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And it's definitely one of those games where your mileage may vary. Especially with how blind we all kind of went in, because we only kind of found out what the gameplay loop is in this game maybe 3 months ago, maybe even 2 months ago. We found out what the real meat and potatoes was, which is picking up cargo, walking a lot, and delivering it. And there's a lot more to it than that. A lot of people are calling it walking simulator, and I find that incredibly reductive, pretty insulting to what the game is trying to accomplish. It's because it's not.
Everyone that says that has not played the game.
Exactly.
Let's just be real.
The reception of that game when it comes to calling it a walking simulator is flat out wrong, and none of those people have played the game. So let's not talk about the reception much more. We're almost 20 minutes in. Let's really dig into the game.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. This is going to be a long one, guys. I wanted to start off with maybe some character interactions. Anyone that stood out to you? There's a lot to talk about.
I had.
Let's make this easier. Let's make this easier. Let's just dig into the ending. That's what everyone really wants to hear about. That's what everyone really wants to talk about. And I think that'll be a good jumping off point into character specifically.
Let me just give a brief summary. I had with the exception possibly of Fragile. I don't. Sometimes Fragile. Yeah, she's French. Or she's French or Belgium. I can't remember.
Her name and the word itself are different pronunciation.
With the exception of Fragile, who even her story gets somewhat ruined by the deficiencies of other character stories. But with that exception, and maybe what we learn about Die Hard Man towards the end, which really I didn't even care about him. I cared about how he tied into Cliff. Yeah, Fragile and Cliff really are the only characters I felt really had something.
I don't know, man.
I was all about Hartman.
Hartman. All right, so the bit where you're at Hartman's house and he's giving you thumbs up in the middle of this long ass cutscene and they're contributing to your likes is hilarious. Yeah, that happens like 5 times.
Can be funny.
There's like that part where you fuck with his record player and he gets pissed at you. and
you
lose,
get minus 20 likes.
Yeah, he docks you 20 likes, and then he gives you 20 likes like 30 seconds later. It's like, oh, thanks.
When you leave the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the fourth wall breaking was pretty cool. Even when you're in the private room with Norman Reedus, and he's like telling you like I gotta pee or like I need to take a shower. It felt like you were actually in the room with him, but that's part of like how well done the facial animation was.
See, I
but
never even. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say even Hartman like breaks the fourth wall because he has cardiac arrest where he basically goes into heart failure every 5 minutes, and there's
like
a timer on the corner of the screen.
What is it, like 21 minutes, and then he reanimates 3 minutes later?
Yeah. Yeah. And then when the counter goes on the screen for like the third time, he just like pushes it over and is like, fuck that, and like continues like talking about his revelations of the Death Stranding.
And you know, his backstory is really, I found it really tragic. I found it really sad, and it made me feel sympathy towards him. But yeah, that the bits where he's just like staring directly at the camera, giving you a thumbs up and giving you 20 likes, that's what made me like love that man.
I guess my problem with, let's see, Die Hard Man, Heartman, Dead Man, and Mama. My problem with those four characters, and Amelie / spoiler alert / Bridget.
Again, if you're listening to this, you should know we're spoiling everything.
Amelie and Bridget are the same person, which I predicted literally from the first time we saw.
Yeah, kind of.
We saw Amelie. Those characters, they do have some backstories that had potential that I wish were fleshed out more, but for the majority of the game, they kind of just served as expedition dumps. Which, you know, to be fair, is not something that Kojima hasn't done before in Metal Gear.
Well, I think
we all agree that Cliff was the best character in this game?
I liked him a lot. He was up there for me.
I might actually agree with that. Sure.
He's basically like the core of this.
When we were playing through the game and we were talking through it as we were playing it, you gave Higgs some shit, but I really liked Higgs. I felt Higgs was a good villain, flawed but good.
Who is he? Where did he come from? Like, there's supposed to be this. This is why I said that Fragile story kind of gets ruined a little bit by other characters. Like, I don't know why they were working together. What's his background?
He was a porter that wanted to basically like do the same thing, or at least like help people, and recognized Fragile's powers and wanted to use them to his benefit. And then he realized, and then Amelie was like, "Hey, look at these powers I have. You want to work for me?" And he's like, "Cool." And then she turned him into a psycho.
Yeah, so
why? What's his motivation?
Here's the motivation, because the thing about this game is a lot of the information is in the data, which is like
all right, I didn't read any of that, so
so I'll provide the background.
God damn it, Jason!
Because it's so good. Like, this is one of the few games.
You shouldn't have to. That's my point.
So I will agree with that. That's actually something that I didn't put in the show notes, and that's something that I do want to bring up. Before you, I'll let you talk about it, Delaila, in a minute. But Jason does bring up a really good point. Final Fantasy 13 did this as well, and it's one of the biggest issues I have with that game. And I love that game. I think that game
Final Fantasy 13 actually has an extremely interesting lore. But it's just a horribly told story.
It's all hidden in these data logs that you have to read, and the game will start spouting all this terminology at you, and you don't know what it is unless you go in there and read. And a lot of people just want to play the game. I can understand and appreciate, adding extra lore and things to read to get the most out of a story, but not when that terminology is said basically every 5 minutes. That needs to be explained somewhere, and as organically as you can possibly make it, that needs to be explained outwardly to the player, because chances are they're never going to go into the menu and read that stuff.
I agree, because especially Higgs' backstory, I felt like that would have been a really interesting thing to see play out, like in a cinematic, as opposed to having to read a data pad, because his backstory is very interesting, and I'll get into it in a minute. But there's other data pads, or interviews rather, that I feel like were okay, like when they're really going into the details of the different perspectives of what the Death Stranding is and how it relates to like the last 5 extinctions. So there's certain like wordy things that I'm okay with being in an interview, but in terms of like these real juicy stories like Higgs, they would have definitely benefited from a cinematic. So Higgs, basically, his parents died when he was a kid. His father, his new father was basically his biological uncle, adopted him and would basically shelter him and abuse the shit out of him whenever he would try to go outside or ask questions about the outside world, because as we know, the outside world is dangerous. It's full of timefall, which ages everything and everyone really fast and deteriorates them and can kill them. And if people die, it creates a void out, which is just basically the whole earth imploding and creates a big hole crater in the earth. And so the uncle / father just abused the fuck out of him and kept him sheltered, and eventually revealed to him like how food was brought inward, even though they're not ever going outside, which is from the porters, which is what the main character is, Sam Porter. And eventually Higgs was like, fuck this. Like, he started hoarding food. And when his father / uncle found out that he was hoarding food, he like literally grabbed him and pushed him against the table and choked him around the neck. And Higgs grabbed a knife and stabbed him and killed him. And that's when he experienced his first BT and his first void out.
Oh.
And because of that, his main goal and his obsession with like being a porter and connecting all the beaches is because he wanted the souls of everyone to have freedom. Whereas what us doing in the game, our main character Sam is trying to do is connect the chiral network and bring America back to the way it was. But Higgs wanted everyone to be free and do whatever the fuck they wanted because he was so sheltered.
See, wouldn't it have been nice if at one point Sam gets captured by Higgs and Higgs gives a nice succinct soliloquy explaining that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
no one's going to disagree that this information should have been provided to the player in a much more organic way than going into your interviews and reading this very, very, very dense and wordy amount of information. There's just so much. There's so much. Not even that, but even like your mail. You get mail from other preppers and other like facility people. Oh yeah, that's another thing about Higgs' backstory is he really fucking loves pizza.
Yeah, like
we're gonna talk about Higgs right fucking now. I told you guys, check your damn mail after that chapter.
I did.
And Jason's like, what? What's mail? How do I do that? I didn't check it. Fucking Peter Engler, Pizza Boy is Higgs. That was a huge thing. That was so crazy to me. And yeah, I was checking my mail much more than I was checking my interviews because the mail actually gives you likes. And
missions.
And missions and clues about things to do and places to go and stuff. So I was actually actively checking that and looking for keywords.
I did it the one time Die Hard Men told me to, because you explicitly have to for a mission.
Yeah, but after Higgs dies, it's revealed that Peter Engler, Pizza Boy, was Higgs all along. That's
and you could
awesome.
Totally miss that. You could totally miss that if you don't read the mail.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's such a cool reveal, and I actually really like how that reveal went down. It's just like in a mail that you can totally miss, but if you're checking your mail and diligent about it, that's like a really, really like whoa kind of thing. I wouldn't want them to just like throw that in your face. Because if you're diligent about what you're doing in the game and doing the missions that you're given and stuff, that's like it's just a really cool organic reveal to come across.
I agree. That's different though than Central.
I know that's like a good thing in an otherwise really crappy mechanic. Everything was just all the backstory for even a lot of the characters and the terminology, the concepts, and everything. It's all so wordy. And also, it's like crazy how filled up your tutorials menu gets. Every little thing it has its own tutorial. Like, even putting on your shoes has a tutorial. It's fucking crazy how many tutorials are in that menu. But let's move on.
Before we move on from Higgs, what did you think of his fight? Because it was the most Metal Gear fight. Higgs is a boss fight,
but Higgs
essentially.
Was probably actually the best boss fight in the game.
I played it on hard mode, and his fight pissed me off because if you died, which you die very easily on hard mode, it's like you had to restart all over again. Yeah. So I bumped it down just for this, and it felt better, like throwing like cargo at him and like stealthing around and grabbing him with the strand and then kicking the shit out of him. But before that, I really hated that fight. And then the silly little like Mortal Kombat Street Fighter like punching sequence that they had after you beat him, I thought was super cheesy, and I don't know if I like it.
Mechanically, I agree that that was the best, at least leading up to the like one-on-one fight in the muck, like having to use the just strewn about cargo to disable him in time to go up and melee him. I thought that was actually a really good idea, really good mechanic, and I give applause for that.
Yeah, it's the only fight that they stripped you of all of your gear.
Yeah.
And left you with like empty PlayStation really, cargo.
Not like yeah, pretty much. And I personally really liked the fighting game fight bit. It's a lot deeper than it is on the surface level, because it's not just like, you know, punch. There's other things you can do.
You have to block,
you can block, you can shift to other sides, you can punch low, you can punch high. The game doesn't really tell you that. It just they kind of just expect you to figure it out all on your own. Which I to an extent I think is pretty clever. I don't want this massive tutorial bit for this very, very brief fight. I think that would be kind of wasted time. So yeah, I think that was a really, really fucking rad boss fight. That was the best boss fight in the game.
That being said, I still enjoyed the cliff fights better.
Me too.
Because
you're a history buff. They were all in famous wars, so that doesn't surprise me.
It's not even just that I'm a history buff and I like the aesthetic of it. I mean, mechanically, they are easy and they're not nearly as well designed as the cliff fight, but I just like the emotional impact of them. Just because Cliff was just the best character in the game. I felt more engaged in those fights, even though they were simpler.
My problem with those fights is that they were all the same.
Yeah, 3 times. The only one, it was cool at first in the trenches and then later in the like forest area, but I don't know. Vietnam. We didn't need to fight him three fucking times. Yeah, Vietnam.
It would have been cooler if something besides the terrain was different. You know, first you're in the trenches of World War I, then you're in a city in World War II, and then you're in the jungle of Vietnam. That, like, those are all very different landscapes, all very different territories, and they all have very different ways of going about the fight, but it's ultimately the same fight. Probably the best one, in my opinion, was the trenches for World War II, because World War I. Because it was almost like a labyrinth, and your tracker would point in a specific direction, but it wasn't just like a straight point unless you found like a slope leading you above the trenches. So you kind of had to work your way through the maze and look around every corner. And that was probably the most unique, most interesting, and most fun one. And that was the first one.
Yeah, I was hoping that they would actually make some Metal Gear callbacks. So like the World War II one would culminate in like a tank fight where you had to fight a tank, or like the Vietnam one, you would have to fight an attack helicopter, which obviously was done in Metal. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah. I get it. That could have been neat, but
it was used to represent, you know, the beaches as a collective purgatory for the soldiers that fought in these wars.
Right.
Which is pretty cool,
and plenty of times for Cliff to say, "Give me back my BB."
Yeah. His whole purpose was to search for his BB. And you think it's the one that Sam's holding.
You are the BB all along.
You're the BB.
Before we get there, I want to double back to Die Hard, man, because I really want to talk about Die Hard, man. Real quick, I want to go back to like Game of the Year stuff, and specifically the Game Awards, which Death Stranding is nominated for quite a few awards this year. for best performance, Norman Reedus should not be on that list.
No,
No.
he should not, because Norman Reedus is the worst performance in
And
this game.
Tommy Earl Jenkins should be on that list solely for everything he says, Die Hard Man says at the end of that game. The whole speech that he gives when breaking down to Sam, that was so powerful, and he did a fucking phenomenal job.
I do like the twist of Die Hard Man.
Yo, by the way,
I still don't believe that any of it tops Mads Mikkelsen in this game.
By the way, one of the things again that you find out through notes, through interviews, is Die Hard Man's real name. Did you guys see what it is?
No, I must have missed that.
It was John something, right?
It's John Blake McClane.
Oh.
As soon as I read that, I started laughing, and I said, my roommate was sitting right there, and I'm just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Because the whole time that he was sitting there, and I'm playing through this game, I was explaining to him the characters in the game, and I was explaining to him Die Hard Man. He's like, "So is it really Bruce Willis?" And I'm like, "No, probably not. No, it basically almost is."
What if his design? Oh, wait a minute. No, it's mocap. So never mind. I was gonna say, what if they designed the character like Bruce Willis and then just made him black?
He very much looks like Tommy Earl Jenkins.
I don't know what Tommy Earl Jenkins looks like.
He looks like Die Hard Man. I just explained it to you.
I guess I do know what he looks like.
But anyway.
I mean, I agree. Basically, Sam Porter is freaking Daryl Dixon. There's no difference between the two. But Die Hardman, especially in that last sequence, I was really impressed. But I just wish he wasn't just this hologram quest giver for the whole game. Like, I wanted to know more about his relationship with Cliff and Lisa.
And we do get a lot of that right at the end, but except for Lisa, because Lisa's just a potato the entire game. But I think the biggest problem with like the character interactions, and I guess the pacing with that, you mentioned we don't find really anything about Die Hard Man until the end. The game
we don't find anything about anything until the end.
That's not true, but the game was very clearly. I mean, they weren't called chapters; they were called episodes.
Right.
And each episode's name was
a character.
Typically, it was a character's name. Actually, I think in all cases, it was a character's name, whether it be first or last or moniker. Yeah. Every single except for Prologue. No, Prologue was Porter.
Prologue was Lou.
No. The epilogue.
No,
was Lou.
The last chapter. Yeah, the last chapter is Lou.
Prologue was Porter, and then chapter 1 was like Bridget, or maybe Strand, or I don't know.
Yeah, it was
Bridget. They're all character names, and each chapter focuses on that character, but other subsequent chapters or previous chapters don't focus on that character as much. They might show up as a hologram telling you like, Sam, you got new boots, you put those on, and you got to take care of your feet, and you're in your private room, if you shower, you can create these grenades that you can throw at BTs. And that's all they really do until their chapter, where it's like, I was pregnant, and then I got trapped under rubble, and then my baby died, and now it's connected to me. It's my baby. I'm its mama. It's like, we fucking already talked to you.
To be
this
fair,
is the only time you're really going to be important.
To be fair, this is actually, when you think about it, how Metal Gear games were structured as well. They just didn't explicitly say it. So like Metal Gear 2, you would have your prologue Snake, then you would come in as Raiden, you would have to find the explosive expert, and then you would have segments of the game that focused on specific bosses.
Well, that's definitely true. Most of those...
But the difference is those games were shorter and better paced.
Those games were shorter, those games were better paced, and also, besides not explicitly saying like Chapter 2, Fat Man, or something along those lines, those aren't allies that were going to stick with you throughout the entire game. Those are antagonists that you have to overcome. So it makes sense that they wouldn't come back or have any reason to come back. You fight them, you beat them, you move on. You
just don't see certain side characters for like almost the entirety of the game.
Most of these characters are allies that help you throughout your quest, but until their chapter comes along, you don't really know anything about them or why they're helping you or what their involvement is or what have you. and then you get to their chapter and it's just them and everyone else takes a back seat, and then you get to the next chapter and it's a new person that's in the front seat and everyone else takes a back seat again, including that person that you just like hung out with for like 2 hours. It really affected the pacing, definitely for me, and it was just bizarre in a way. Especially Deadman, who was really the first. Not, I wouldn't say the first. Fragile was probably the first. Fragile is in the same camp though. These are some of the first characters you see, and they're throughout the game. Throughout the game, they're with you the most in a way. And Deadman's chapter doesn't come till like halfway through the game.
And then like you find out, he tells you, I'm not a man. I'm like a Frankenstein. I was made from like a bunch of different.
Explains the big like fucking seam on his forehead.
And then like they never talk about it again. I'm like, dude, you just revealed you're like fucking Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's because it was
like,
his chapter. It was his time to give like a big exposition.
Are we gonna talk about this? Like,
he used to be a mortician.
What the fuck? Like
now he is the morgue.
He is the morgue. He was just obsessed with death because he didn't really have anyone.
Also, since we're on the fucking topic of Deadman, can we talk about how fucking goddamn awkward that shower scene was?
Oh my god. I kind of loved it, but I was like, why?
That was so uncomfortable. The dude was in a full-ass suit, and he just gets in the shower, turns on the water, and says, okay, they can't hear us in here. I need to talk to you about Die Hardman.
Which is bullshit, because the computer talks to Norman Reedus in the shower all the time.
Well, no. I think he I don't know. He came up with something like, okay, I delayed the comms, and we're in the shower. Like, no one can hear us. No one can penetrate. But it's just like, you're in a full-ass suit, sir. Yeah. Like, you are taking a shower in a full-ass suit.
Kojima always tries to intellectualize reasons to place his fetishes inside his games, and this was one of those moments.
Yeah, man, I don't want to go like party with as much as I might respect him as a game creator. I would never want to go party with
Don't
Kojima.
get drunk with him.
I don't know where I would end up. I don't know what would happen. I'd probably break some international laws. Yeah.
You can tell, like, Sam, and I hope by extension Norman Reedus was, like, super uncomfortable with that scene. Like, especially Sam, when he's got that touching phobia. He's like, you are way too close to me, and we are getting wet right now. Please, sir. Finish up your point, and let's get out of here.
I was actually like, I thought it was kind of cool how, at first, whatever the phobia is where he doesn't like people, it was kind of used as a measure of his character growth to whatever extent he had character growth. Well, he did have character growth, but it does come
with his like comfort level towards certain people and things like that.
Yeah, he eventually gets more comfortable with them touching him, especially like when he has the final speech before he goes to confront Amelie. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the game, like nobody can touch him again, and it was kind of like weird.
I thought he had fully overcome it by then, but
no, you notice like I think both Fragile and Deadman tried to touch him, and he like recoils.
God.
Amphenphosimphobia, fear of touch.
It's just weird. Yes, weird how Sam goes back and forth, like. Literally in the chapter before that Amelie, the climax chapter with Amelie, in the chapter before he's like, oh, I don't give a shit about America. Like the entire game is, I don't give a shit about America. And then he's giving like this inspirational speech like, we got to put aside our differences. We might have a future, we might not. We'll never know. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like I was like, this is kind of sudden.
And sometimes like we did get some good performances out of Norman Reedus with his character. Like I won't say it was all bad. A lot of it was just very uneven.
He's a very flat actor.
There would he is. He's very one note, but that one note is typically really good. But throughout a lot of this game, he just didn't really say much. And when he did have something to say, he did say a lot. And like I said, we did get some really good performances out of him, but there would be like really, really long bits of time where we just wouldn't hear a word out of him in like a really long cutscene. Like I feel like he didn't talk much during the entire Hartman. It's hard to keep track of all the Blankmans. During that entire sequence with Hartman, I feel like he didn't really say all that much. And Hartman just talks a lot.
Yeah, well,
He also
again,
writes a lot.
Yeah,
that goes back to what
he
I was
does.
saying. These characters serve, for the most part, largely as expedition dumps.
They are. They absolutely are. I won't
And
disagree.
an excuse for him to express his fetishes.
Yes.
Just like he did with Quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yes. um, I also thought Mama and Lochna was weird. Mama
I
dies
understand.
and her soul goes back to
I
Lochna, and now they're the
understand.
same person. And there's
He's-
this one bit where like Lochna's talking to Sam, and he's like, "Mama, is that you?" And it like is her somehow, but it's like not.
It was supposed to be an analogy for the Virgin Mary.
Oh my god!
I understand what he's trying to do storytelling wise. It just doesn't work and doesn't belong in the game.
And last but not least, oh shoot, who was the character? Oh yeah, the last but not least, the last thing I want to bring up with a specific character before we get into the ending. We really need to get into the ending because that's a lot to talk about in its own.
Yeah,
His relationship with Amelie was so weird.
It is.
I thought so. The entire game, I was confused. I knew Amelie was Bridget. I knew that. I knew that she was gonna eventually end up being
But
the
like,
final bad
but
guy.
at the same time,
But
she
like,
was. Oh, I didn't expect
know,
that, but
I didn't know. I was confused throughout the entire game, like because they say like the old Bridget is his mother, and then Amelie shows up, and then it's like there's this weird implication that there's like a love interest between them.
Yeah.
And it
and like
feels
Fragile
like-
gets jealous, and she's like, "You love her, don't you?"
And then it shows,
It's like,
and then it shows Amelie with him on the beach as a child, and I'm like, what the fuck did she do to Sam as a kid? Like
she was grooming him. It's a big issue in 2019.
exactly. Like I was like, what the fuck?
But
She's a
it
pedophile.
was such a bizarre like I was constantly questioning from the beginning of the game. I was questioning whether or not like because we were led to believe that Bridget was his mother, but like his name is Sam Porter Bridges. Her name is Bridget Strand. So like what is his fucking name? And that made me think like, well, is she not really his mother? But then we're led to believe that Amelie's also his sister. But it's like, well, she's like the same age now as she was when he was a kid, and they're being really weird towards each other.
And
like,
just a weird point of clarification because he had that photo the entire game. He was married at one point, right?
yeah,
Yes.
if not
Okay.
married, definitely had a significant other. I think they were married.
Okay.
And the plan was she was pregnant, and the plan was to name that baby Lou, which is why he starts naming
Yes,
BB.
that's what
Which, by the way,
picked up.
I do actually. Before we move on from characters, that is Lou is technically a character, and I really liked what they did with Lou. I really liked that randomly in the game, like towards the middle, right before you get to Dead Man's chapter, BB stops giving you likes. Lou starts giving you likes, and he starts calling BB Lou, and that just
Yes.
happens. And it doesn't
Yeah.
happen in a cutscene. It doesn't. There's nothing that keys that off. It might even be related to the Sam and BB's connection level. I'm not really sure, or maybe it's just completely like once you get to a certain part in the
BB
narrative, he starts doing that.
Yeah,
But, like,
BB/Lou is definitely along with like Cliff, and those stories are tied intrinsically together.
yes,
It's the heart of the game, and I felt it was the most successful part of the game, and it was
and
the
I'm
part
just,
I enjoyed the most.
And really, all I want to get at is like from a mechanics level, just from randomly, like you're going around the world, and he starts calling the baby Lou, and you're like, Lou, what the fuck? Like Lou,
Who the hell is Lou?
Is Lou the baby? Oh, he named it. Oh, it's just like it's like a super organic thing that just sort of happens, and they don't make a big deal about it. It's just something that you come across yourself and notice and start to notice as he does it more, and it's like, oh, that's really sweet.
And as I want to make this quick note, and I'm not trying to get political here because I actually didn't. I like picked up on this, but then I heard somebody else saying it, kind of confirming my thoughts. And rightly or wrongly, and I'm just throwing this out here, did Kojima make a pro-life video game? Just think about that for a second. No, seriously.
No, I did see someone bring that up, that the game is like it's both obviously and not obviously it kind of pro life.
Because from what I understand, Japanese culture is kind of pro-life. From what I've heard, it's kind of traditional. I don't know. I might be wrong on that, but
I would say
I don't know. I don't know Kojima's politics, but like
I would say a lot of Japanese culture as it comes to family is traditional family values. Finding a mate, having children, raising children, and as a child, going through school, going through college, and getting a good job. It's very traditional in that manner. So I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah.
The babies were a tool for the government to discover the Death Stranding. So I don't know.
But this was Sam's BB.
But Sam chose to have the BB.
Yeah.
He didn't want to abort it.
Dead man was like, go up.
Delaila. Oh,
she's throwing a wrench in the cogs. Maybe this is a pro-choice game.
Okay, I just wanted to throw out the suggestion because I thought it was an interesting take.
Nah, it's a good.
It could be, and it's not in your face, which is appropriate. Because if it was, then it'd be like, all right, fuck you.
Right.
Yeah, and we'll come back to Lou while we talk about the ending because there is a bit that I want to. There is an extra bit about Lou that I want to talk about. But yeah, let's get into the ending. With Amelie and Bridget being the same fucking person, and them being the same person. One being the body, the other being the soul, and them being connected to this fucking beach, and them being an extinction entity. And this is where everything starts to get just like really annoyingly convoluted.
Yeah,
and it's like
basically
this is the culmination of Kojima taking all of his terminology throughout the entire game, of which you need basically a fucking dictionary to understand, and throwing it all at you at once.
Yeah, Amelie is basically the main antagonist in this game, in my opinion.
No, she 100% is.
She's the extinction entity, which is the one that basically ends human life as it is. For the sixth extinction following the dinosaurs and all that shit we know. And Sam loves her because that was his mother / sister / question mark lover. Like, we don't know. And she basically gave Sam and Higgs powers that, like, kind of fucked them up in some way or another, like confused them, I think. And I guess she loves Sam too, so maybe she wasn't all that bad. But it was just very weird.
The way love is treated in this game, especially this ending, is just bizarre. I guess let's just instead of I don't want to explain the whole ending. I just kind of want to talk about how we felt about it. Like, did we feel this was like overly convoluted, or did it make sense? I personally, I had to do some additional reading to make sure I understood this right.
Same.
Because not even the bit about Cliff and the original BB all made sense.
Yes.
And like that whole bit made sense. It was, in my opinion, super well done, super well acted, super well explained.
The scene where he kills his wife, like that was,
yeah, man.
That scene made I was really kind of fed up, like about 2/3 into the game, like with how long it was and the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene, like that entire epilogue chapter, I felt made it worth it. Like, just kind of the raw emotion, like kind of brought it all together. For the most part, brought it all together. There's still questions, but
that whole bit was super well done, and the whole bit about extinction entity. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Spoilers: if you haven't watched this anime, please go watch Neon Genesis Evangelion.
It's on Netflix.
Don't watch the if you can avoid it, don't watch the Netflix version. The
dubbed version's on Netflix.
Actually, I think it's the original Japanese. If you want to watch it, in Japanese with the subs, like that's I guess fine. But they even fucked up the subs. If you can find it elsewhere, home video, it's a disaster because they haven't released it since like 2003. Specifically, like, also make sure you watch End of Evangelion, because this whole extinction entity and Last Stranding thing was like, and spoilers, like, stop here and skip ahead like 30 to like a minute. Skip ahead a minute. Have you guys seen Evangelion?
Mm-hmm.
I have seen time. I've seen like 10 to 15 episodes of it, so I know the premise.
You didn't watch
I
End
know
of
the premise.
Evangelion? You didn't watch End of Evangelion?
You can spoil. I don't care.
This is like straight up End of Evangelion, top to bottom. Like it's the same fucking thing. Like
I
Sam
wouldn't be
Sam
surprised.
is Shinji deciding like, do I want humanity to continue, or do I want it to all just go to hell? And like
I know who Shinji is.
Shinji deliberates, Sam doesn't, and just like stops it, and like complete with like a beach and the water and like the fucking exploding sun. Although instead it's an exploding sun instead of Ray's giant severed head. But it's like straight up just End of Evangelion.
Right.
Like the whole fucking thing. I like Kojima must have watched that show like 5 times while he was writing this game. And
I
like
would imagine, where do you think he got Zone of the Enders?
yeah. Yeah, that's also true. Is like Mecha. I've never seen any evidence that Kojima likes Evangelion, but it really wouldn't surprise me based on some of the writing and choices that he makes in his narrative. So yeah, and end of the End of Evangelion spoilers here. I think we can move on from that. I just really wanted to bring that up because it's all I could think about during the ending. I thought the revolver bit was like super convoluted and kind of dumb.
Yeah, it was like a weird totem,
It's like
the dream catcher.
and that's like the biggest thing that I needed to like look up and read about, because it's like, oh yeah, and the Dreamcatcher bit. I read like a Twitter thread a while ago that like you should not buy dream catchers, and they're not supposed to be like sold because it's like kind of insulting to Native American history and Native American culture. So I thought it was interesting to like, I read that thread a couple months ago, and then I see one in the game and they like talk about it a lot and has like some intrinsic meaning, and I'm like, oh boy.
I doubt Kojima had any idea.
Probably.
He did. He wrote about the
did?
Native Americans in an interview and what the dream catcher means.
Oh, good. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and then like there was also the Kipu, and oh yeah, that's another thing, is the fucking word strand is used in 6 different ways, including the goddamn genre of the game, so to speak.
One of your fucking weapons is a strand.
Yeah, I know. You have a weapon that's a strand. Bridget's last name is Strand. You have to connect facilities through strands and connections. When you die, repatriate,
Kojima.
you have to find a strand.
This is a new genre called the strand genre.
Oh my god!
Everything we know is a fucking strand. It's an umbilical cord.
It's really an umbilical cord. I think they even refer to that as a strand at some point. Like the whole game, it's so hard to take a lot of this seriously when he uses the same word for like in like 5 or 6 different ways. And it's really hard to take it seriously, especially strand, whenever the word strand is mentioned, when it's a weapon you have and it's, in Kojima's eyes, the genre of the game. It's so hard to take any of that seriously.
Do you ever think that some of this might be translation issue, like the translator?
I really don't.
Because I don't.
Because I feel like
if there's a difference between like the translators who are working with him now and those who are working in him, say, like back in the days of like MGS1, MGS2, MGS3, which there was some silly stuff in those games, but usually they were silly on purpose, like something like Ocelot, Revolver Ocelot in MGS3.
I genuinely feel this is just his writing style, and if anyone came to him and said, no, don't do this, he knew full on what he was doing and did not care.
Oh yeah, that was something that actually came to mind because I was watching like a YouTube video about the Star Wars prequels. Sorry, at some point in between while I was in the process of playing this game, and it was a piece. It's a very famous piece of documentary behind the scenes footage that's like on the DVDs for The Phantom Menace, and it shows George Lucas walking out with the first draft of The Phantom Menace, and everybody's clapping, and then they all sit down to read it, and the producers and stuff are just looking at him with like dumbfounded faces. But nobody says anything, and then it shows more footage of like the first test screening for just like the producers and George, and then George is like, "Yeah, we couldn't use a little less Jar Jar," and like nobody's saying anything to him. I feel like this is kind of Kojima's curse now, I don't think people are willing to question him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think you might be right on that. Right on the
He's
money.
basically the George Lucas of video games.
At least this is like nebulous enough to be acceptable. Jar Jar Binks was just a fucking mess.
Hey, I love Jar Jar. Don't you dare talk shit on Jar Jar.
I think we need to make the pod racing scene a little longer.
Hey, pod racing was also fucking rad. I love that movie, unironically.
I
But
don't like that movie.
um, this is now a Star Wars Episode 1 defense podcast. No, we're not doing that. Back to the revolver. Yeah, it was really just, it was so nonsensical. Like, oh, this was Die Hard Man's revolver. Or no, it was like, I don't even remember whose revolver. It was Die Hardman's revolver. And then they all got it and somehow got connected to it. And then it was given to Amelie. Then it was given to Sam. It's like, it won't do you any good, but it has a purpose. It's like, and then all the while you're waiting for that too. And this is like another kind of frustrating bit about the ending. There are 3 fucking credit sequences.
Yeah.
3 of them.
I texted you guys in the Slack chat because I got there before you guys, and I was like, I hate when credits do this. And you're like, what is it?
I didn't know what you meant. Like, as soon as I get to it, and like I'm running around on this beach with nothing to do, there's nothing there, and then I see directed by Hideo Kojima. I immediately message in the Slack channel saying,
no,
Jason, I know what you mean now.
I wish it would have been somewhat more alleviating if like Kojima had put like a sunken Statue of Liberty in the background of the beach.
Oh my god!
If they were just like
ironic,
if there were like
make it
things, funny. If there were interesting things to find on this empty beach while we're running around waiting for Amelie to appear and give us more backstory, during the credits we're getting more backstory. If there was something to go find, like even like a little nook or a cave or something to even just somewhat explore while we're getting the credits, like that would have made that sequence so much better. Instead, all you can really do is run up and down. There's like some knolls and like tiny little hills and some rocks you can climb. You can go out in the water and go out far enough that the water will be like, nope, fuck you, get back to that beach and send you back.
No matter which way you go, you get sent back to your starting.
And then there's even bits like where I started climbing hills, and then that triggered the next Amelie conversation got triggered, and then I was back in the original place on the beach. I'm like, no, that's not where I was. No, go back to that hill. I was exploring that.
And by the way, folks, this is not the actual final credit.
No, this is the first. This is the first of 3 credit sequences. This is number 1 of 3. Because after this is done, that's when we finally get the. That's when we finally get the regular just black credits roll sequence, or the first of those, I think. And then we get chapter 14, the epilogue chapter with Lou. And we hear Die Hardman's speech to America, and then Die Hardman's speech to Sam, and then him talking to Fragile. And then you have to go back to the incinerator to kill Lou, and more music starts playing. Oh, it's so nice, so sweet, so nice. We get if you bought this game, congratulations, you now like somewhat legally own the entire Low Roar soundtrack discography, or Low Roar discography, which. Fantastic band. I saw them live. They're really good. But like,
it helped me get through the interviews.
Jesus
listening
Christ.
to them.
I know this will be controversial, but at first I was like, oh, I like the first time I heard one of those low roar songs. By the way, I should preface that I don't really listen to music past like the year 2005.
You have no music taste. I understand.
But like the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, this is nice. This is relaxing. Like when you're carrying Bridget's body to the furnace. And there's like some like low key, like I don't even know what you call
it. It's like indie electronica.
Like indie, like whatever. And it's like, oh, this is kind of nice. It's relaxing as you take your mother to go burn in a furnace. But like over the course of the game, I felt like, okay, another song. And it kind of all just like flowed. Maybe it's because I don't listen to this genre a lot, but like just kind of all sounded the same.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a kind of you get it or you don't sort of thing. And
yeah, maybe
I get that. I get that with some bands. Like, don't get it with others. Low Roar, I think, is pretty good. But regardless, these fucking endings, man. You go and then you get like a huge like half hour, 45-minute epilogue info dump and then you get the final credit sequence, the 3 of 3. Just what a loaded ending to give us. And I think we'll all agree that the whole bit with Cliff and BB, it was pretty well done. It was very well done, I thought.
They showed a dead infant.
They not only showed a dead infant, like fucking Mads Mikkelsen. Like, not only does he kill his wife, like, by the way, she's basically dead already. She's like being barely kept alive, but still.
They coined still mother.
Yeah, still mother.
And it's just they literally just explain it as brain dead mothers.
Instead of a still baby, like the mother was dead, but the baby was still alive inside her, versus the opposite. It could be very triggering for people.
It's like it's so visceral though how they portray. Like he strategically plans out like in The Godfather Part 2, like he takes a rag and wraps it around the revolver to silence it, and takes a pillow and puts it to her face, just blasts her in the face 3 times.
And he struggled, and the performance was excellent. Like he struggled with it. Like he really. Mads Mikkelsen did a phenomenal fucking job.
I really hope he wins the award.
Yeah. He's up. For those who don't know, he is also up for best performance, and I think he got all of our votes because he was just really good.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
shout outs to Party though.
Yeah.
Ashley Birch, whatever.
But I didn't vote because there's Chinese infiltrators in the Game Awards.
Yeah, we're gonna ignore that. So, yeah, They shoot an infant, not even an infant, an unborn child, technically.
Yes.
Yeah. And Emily/Bridget shoots the infant.
The president of the United States. I'm sorry, the United Cities, shot an unborn child, and Mads Mikkelsen, and this actually it explains Sam's ability to repatriate. I didn't know if that was something we should just take for granted. But turns out it had an explanation because, of course, it did. Thank you, Kojima.
So let me ask you guys, because I was actually confused about this for a little while, and I'm still not entirely sure. Yeah. So, is Lou just a random baby?
Yeah.
Or so he's a random baby because
actually
yes.
She it's a she.
Oh, did you not see the scene at the end of the 3rd credit sequence?
No.
Yeah, there's a scene where they're holding hands, and Sam calls her Louise, and that's when you realize that she is a Louise.
Is she grown up slightly?
No. This is right after the game, right after the events.
Oh, I did see that. Then
never
mind.
Yeah, and her name is. You find out it's a girl, and her name is Louise.
I didn't realize. I thought Louise was like a transsexual, like a bisexual, whatever you call it.
A gender neutral.
Gender neutral name.
God.
But
Lou technically
for
is.
For the first few hours, I was under the impression that Lou and Sam were the same person, and there was
that was a thought that I had too. But no, they didn't do any hokey time travel bullshit. Thank God. It was just straight up. Sam is that original BB. He wasn't picking up that BB's memories. It was his own memories that he didn't really know about. And the BB that he had was just another BB that was defective that he saved and used and kept and grew and created a relationship with.
Yeah.
And is now his surrogate daughter.
Yeah. We didn't make clear, though, that Sam was indeed the first BB ever.
Yes. That was really good.
Yeah.
You see the whole bit where he comes back to life. Bridget picks him up and is like, "I'll adopt him as my own. I'll raise him as my own." And that's
give him powers.
That moment was my confirmation. Okay, yes, she is his mother.
Yes,
not biological, but she is his adoptive mother.
Well,
yes.
We still don't know what she did with him on that beach.
God, I don't want to know what.
She's like, "I'm gonna watch you grow, and then I'm gonna bang you."
God.
Hey man, weirder things have happened in Hollywood.
Like I said, groomers are a real problem in 2019. I think we all I think we're all pretty high on that ending. We all enjoyed it.
Yes, and I just want to stress, and I know I keep saying it over and over again, but definitely my favorite part of the game was Cliff Unger's story. I like how it tied together. I like how all the scenes that you've kind of seen in just disjointed fashion throughout the game come together, and there's actually like an arc there that he was this super soldier who lived a life. It was almost like a meta commentary on Kojima's past career, in a sense.
And that's
And
probably
and
intentional.
and that Cliffhanger was essentially Solid Snake. And then he has this child, and he's forced to kind of give up that life and
Death Stranding is Kojima's BB.
basically, yeah.
I was about to say, like, no, Cliff is like Kojima and BB is like Metal Gear, and it gets taken away from him. He's like, give me back my BB. But yeah, yeah, this ending, the game, bad pacing, good pacing, whatever's in between the beginning and the ending, like that ending really did pay off. I actually kind of thought Cliff sucked just like early in the game because we knew nothing about him and he just kept showing up. And then that first boss battle, while really cool, I'm like, I still learned nothing about you. Like, why should I care? And then by
I
the
thought
end,
the same thing at first.
by
I thought
the
the same
end,
thing.
yeah, it like all paid off.
Yeah.
It really all paid off.
I just want to give a shout outs to our last episode, Soma. This game kind of confirmed that the arc, fuck it, because it was basically saying in the
Spoilers
interview,
for Soma. Go listen to the Soma episode. Play Soma before you listen to Delilah's rant. If you haven't played it, skip ahead a minute. Go, Delaila.
Because basically beaches are like the afterlife, purgatory, the portal for the underworld and the world of the living. And everyone has their own, and people are tied to it if they still have some purpose to fulfill in their life on Earth, and their soul isn't free to like do whatever it wants. And so the beach for me represented the arc in Soma, where you're just like stuck in this purgatory. And they were basically talking about how like AI, even if it has human conscience, could never hold on, let me double back. So dooms are the powers that Sam has, that Amelie has, that Fragile has, that Hartman has, and they're all different levels of dooms. Like Sam can repatriate. And dooms are basically
is just like, it's just like the ability to detect BTs, which is like the most convoluted way to explain that.
Yes, but the purpose of dooms is that the people who have dooms are going to be able to survive the sixth extinction. And this is where it gets into like survival of the fittest, why like certain creatures were able to survive extinctions and others weren't. And so this is like the extinction for like people. So whoever has dooms is basically going to survive this extinction, right? And so now let me go back. If an AI...
Again, skip ahead like 30 seconds if you haven't played Soma.
I'm not going to spoil it too much,
okay,
but maybe. I don't know.
I'm just being careful.
The reason why people are able to survive this extinction and have dooms is because they have the concept of death in their head, and they fear it, and they imagine it and think about it, and with the time fall and the BTs, it kind of accelerates that because it ages you so fast. And so it's like, in a way, accelerating evolution and helping people get dooms, or at least people that are connected and evolving in that way. And so AI could never do that because they don't understand death. They've never been born. Even if they have human consciousness, like they don't know what it feels like to actually die. And so I thought that was like kind of reminded me of Soma a little bit, and proof why the arc is bullshit.
What an interesting dichotomy, like episode after episode that we've reached here on Reap the Spoils. Fantastic. Wouldn't you agree, Jason?
Yeah, I was just thinking, people with dooms in this game, they're kind of like the X-Men. They're mutants. Which begs the question, if everybody else with dooms can like fucking teleport around, why can't Sam? It would have made the game a lot easier.
No, I think that's like another
I just broke your mind.
Weird ability. That's just like Fragile. That's just her mutant ability, man. Anyway,
I wanted a mutant ability.
I think we can move on from like the ending. Do we have anything more to say about the ending or the story as a whole?
No, I think we covered the
I
story
want to do
The-
some.
extensively.
I
The
want to do some.
extinction happens because humans are taking all the resources from the Earth. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Fucking deep. And well, hey, they're taking all the resources from the Earth and reusing them for as other resources for everyone else, which is a great jumping off point into the discussion of this brand new genre that Kojima has blessed our timeline with, the strand genre. That
Not really.
This game supposedly is.
It's not really brand new. Steals a lot. Like, there's elements of Minecraft in here, if you think about it.
Elements, but
The
not a whole genre.
elements of Minecraft slash Fortnite. There's elements there's elements of Metal Gear Solid in here. Like when you actually get to the end and
But if you take
get
all these,
weapons
if you take
and-
all these elements, put them in a basket and shake them all up, you get the strand genre, Jason.
yeah, I guess it's true. Like the one thing that's new is probably the least interesting that you're fucking what's his name, Kevin Costner in The Postman. Like
All right,
I wish you had a horse in this game actually, like Metal Gear Solid 5. That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
BT horse.
Yeah, the strand genre is kind of like, what does that even mean?
Honestly, the most fun I had in this game was fighting like the BT bosses, like the giant fucking whale.
Oh, I love that fight.
Like
The giant.
Yeah, like-
well, that's another. Going back to the Clifford Unger boss fights, like all of the BT fights were the same to me as well. They
No,
all
they
boil
were.
down to
They
the same
were.
exact thing: equip
They
your
were the-
gun
they
that
were
has
the
blood
same.
bullets, or have a stockpile of hematic grenades, or just chuck at these things.
But we
They
had
were-
a rocket launcher at the whale fight.
I won't-
That was
I won't-
admittedly cool.
I won't argue with you that they were the same and kind of generic action, and the same thing with the mules, fighting the mules. But that
See,
being
I
said,
would even say the mules were more interesting because you could stealth around, hide in grass. If you had too much cargo, they could see you. And really, the goal wasn't really to fight them. The goal was just to steal back cargo.
yeah, sure.
And then they introduced terrorists, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Well, you could just go around killing mules or knocking them out if you wanted to. The point I'm trying to make is that the most fun I had in this game was fighting. Like, which you don't really get like the ability to
Funnily,
do until towards the end of the game.
I would say that was like my least favorite thing about the game was the combat. Fighting, combat in general. Like, I felt like it took a major
I'm not saying that I like loved it. Like, I'm saying that it was my most favorite part of the game.
No, I mean that's fair. I just, for me, it was just like, it definitely took a backseat to everything else. And this game was loaded with mechanics, and combat was obviously not a core mechanic. That like just general like moment to moment combat. Like obviously the boss fights were really big, and the combat needed to be somewhat refined in order to get through those in a meaningful and intuitive way. But it's like you weren't moment to moment between deliveries constantly engaging in battles with mules or terrorists or BTs even necessarily. Most of the time you were engaging with BTs, it was sneaking through them, and
Right.
once you got the ability, cutting their cords.
Which totally like nullified the threat. I felt.
Yeah, and my only problem with that was it would take me forever to get through BT territory if I went around just cutting everything I saw, and that would cause my cargo to deteriorate from the timefall like super fast.
Yeah, that's why I just cut whatever was in my path.
I started doing that, and even then it would take longer than I'd liked.
Again, that's like, and I guess this starts to get into the gameplay loop of delivering packages and the micromanagement
all of the micromanagement, the placement of your cargo, where you put it, even though like you mostly do it automatically, but like even just like going to do a delivery and seeing some lost cargo and it might be in a tricky spot and going to get it, and then delivering things, building roads with whatever materials I happen to have on me and stuff, all that little micromanagement, that was my favorite part of this game. Luckily, it was the core mechanic, but
Yeah. That's why I think the strand genre will be like games that implement ways for different players to build things that help you in the game and you guys kind of help each other. I can see that being implemented in cool ways in other games,
But
but that's about it.
I still like I'm super hesitant to call this its own genre because all he really
Yeah.
did was make a micromanagey a micromanagey adventure game where the mechanics are less on traversal and combat and more on weight and how it affects your traversal and ways to traverse and things and all that with social features. Like, I think it's a super unique experience, but I don't know that I'd call it a new genre.
Yeah.
I think that's I think that's just Kojima, because Kojima basically I would almost say that he invented the stealth genre, whether or not he tried to, because he didn't really. The only reason Metal Gear was considered a stealth game was because of technical limitations at the time. The MSX couldn't render that many. Sure, let's go with that. He definitely majorly popularized it, if not invented it, essentially, because all because the MSX couldn't produce that many bullets on screen. So his way around that was, well, just make it so that no bullets get fired.
Yeah.
And he's constantly referred to as like the father of that genre, and I think he just kind of wants that feeling again. But this time he's going about it by saying, this is new. This is a new genre that I created. It's the strange genre.
I'm sorry, Kojima. That's not gonna.
I have to agree. I think this is one of those moments, and I love the man. I respect him, and I think he's one of the best and most unique game designers out there. But this is him. Like I said at the top of the show, Metal Gear Solid 2 time, like the peak of Metal Gear, around like the time of 2 and 3, that was him at his peak intelligence with his gameplay, his storytelling, and his writing and everything. This is his most altruistic, where he just has his head up his ass and thinks that he's smarter than he's actually being.
I go back, with the prequel genre or trilogy.
The prequel genre.
I wanted to make more tone pieces than dramas like I did with the original. I wanted to make movies for my kids.
I do think that developers are going to use the strand element in terms of like world building in multiplayer. But it won't be like a strand game like in the way we say Souls game, because we say like a game like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has soul-like features, and it does, but it's nothing like the Souls games in so many ways. It just has like that element to it, and I do foresee that element being in other games.
And I wouldn't even call the Souls games like genre defining. I think that those games are action role-playing games, action RPGs that have a very specific playing style. And that's kind of inspired lots of games like it, but I don't even consider them like their own genre. Maybe somewhat of a subgenre of action RPGs, but I still wouldn't call them their own genre. An adventure game with heavily relying on social mechanics is not a new genre. It's definitely unique. It's one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. I find it
particularly with the overencumbrance and the management of your resources. Which, I'm sorry, but no mainstream game is going to emulate it because it's just dumb game design. I felt like half this game, I was just fucking spraying shit on my packages to keep it from dying.
I disagree strongly.
Especially when you get to like the snow chapter. Which one was that? That was was that Dead Man?
That was Dead Man into Heartman, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's just fucking snowing everywhere, and snow is considered timefall.
Stronger timefall.
Well, it's still precipitation that
it's just
see like that bit,
I was getting to the point through that middle third of the game where I just wanted it to end. Like I wanted to just put a bullet in my head.
I don't know. It never.
And that's not. And one of the reasons again I say it's not a new genre is because over-encumbrance is not a thing we haven't seen in video games before. I mean, obviously not to this extent.
That's the difference, though. There's a
reason. There's a reason we haven't seen it to this extent. Like, how would you feel if you were playing Elder Scrolls and all of a sudden, like, your character starts tilting to the sides because you reached halfway of towards your over encumbrance.
I mean,
Like,
Well, that's different because I gotta fight my dragons.
here's
you
the
gotta
thing.
fucking
Here's the thing.
evade BTs and fight mules in this.
Here's the thing. Besides the fact that those are they're two different genres. Like, I understand over encumbrance is like a thing mostly in RPGs, frankly, but like he took it and gamified it. He made it the main like draw, the main mechanic of the game is like how you manage your inventory and how you manage, like, okay, I have to make this delivery. Well, what's between me and that destination? Some mountains. All right, so I need to take a ladder, maybe two, and I'll take some climbing anchors because I'm probably going to have to climb down some cliffs. Okay, now I still have to manage my cargo. Where am I going to put that? How much can I carry? So on and so. He took all that and gamified it. And like the reason there's so many micromanaging mechanics is because those are the main mechanics. So like how a game with combat, like just a recent example, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, how the combat has lots of nuance and you slowly unlock like new ways of going about combat. You unlock new force powers, you unlock new moves with lightsaber and stuff. Like how that happens, or even other games. I'm struggling to think of an example off the top of my head, but like you slowly unlock more ways to go about combat because those are the main mechanics within those titles. The main mechanic here is delivering packages. So all the micromanagement directly correlates to that. It directly affects how you go about delivering your packages, whether it be new tools to traverse or new things to help you carry more cargo, or I can't even think of any other off the top of my head, like, you know, better boots for longer traveling and things like that. You're constantly, as you go through the game, like an obstacle will enter your path and you'll have to go through it. You'll have to tough it like once or twice for a couple deliveries. Man, that sucks. Oh yeah, we know. Here you go. We made you some skeleton legs that'll help empower your back and your legs and let you support more cargo.
Yeah, but
it's like, oh, thank you.
The problem is you don't start getting half this shit until like 15, 20 hours into the game.
I mean, and every
most
time
of the stuff.
you get something new, you still have to connect the chiral network and not face like tougher terrain like snow.
Yeah, as I said, like you do a few deliveries. And it's like, oh boy, that was tough. It's like, okay, well here, we're going to make it a little easier for you to do that in the future. And then it's easier for a few missions, and then you face a new obstacle. And in my opinion, that's good game design because it's giving you an obstacle and it gives you something to overcome it. And then you overcome it and you get that positive reinforcement of, yeah, that was easier. The game is getting easier for me. It's like, all right, it can't be too easy. Like, here's a new obstacle. Like the snow. And the snow is probably the most frustrating one, I got to say. I thought the snow sucked.
Yeah, I guess the difference, just to summarize, because I understand what you're saying, the argument that you're making, and I guess the difference of opinion we have here is that I didn't feel satisfied when I finally completed these challenges or overcame them. I just felt like I wasted my time, and I wanted it to be over.
And that's totally valid.
Like,
that's pretty much why.
I ended up trying to drive trucks over fucking mountains and like motorcycles. I'm not joking. I was taking every opportunity to fucking just minimize the amount of time I had to waste walking across a wasteland.
I found a truck out in the wild and I had a lot of cargo on me and I think my power skeleton was starting to run low on battery. So I saw a truck and I was like, all right, I need to fucking take this. But it was like in this really rocky. It's like that area with like the almost hexagonal rocks.
I hate that place.
All at different elevations.
Yes,
it's like
basically a maze.
Terrain. Yeah, it's terrible terrain to even walk around, let alone drive a fucking truck. But I was like, I gotta risk it, and it's
specifically designed that way to keep you from using, because right behind it, there's that area with all the different valleys that run all the way across.
It was right by a cliff, and I'm driving the truck, and it starts to tip towards the cliff, and I'm like, no, and I tried to pull it back, and it wasn't, and I fell off the cliff. And the truck was destroyed. All my cargo fell all over the place. I had to pick it all up. Oh my god, it was all damaged.
The other thing. That's the other thing. This idea that like you're in this super future tech world, and you have all this shit like technology to communicate with the dead and whatnot, and like all this other stuff, and yet you don't have straps that can keep your shit on your back when you just trip and fall over. Like, what the fuck? That was probably
why are you
the
tripping and
most.
falling over at all, Jason? There's mechanics. There's mechanics in the game to prevent that.
I would just randomly. I would be like tapping the R2 and L2,
You
and
gotta
like
hold them, man.
suddenly there'd be like a tiny rock that like I didn't see, and it'd just be whoa, and I'd fall over, and everything would scatter.
But like that goes back to what I'm saying is like with the main draw of the game, grabbing all this inventory, micromanaging your inventory, and traversing the world, like he needs to gamify it. Otherwise, it does become a walking simulator. If all you do is walk and you don't have to do anything other than that, what's the point? But no, like you have to be mindful of what terrain you're walking around. There might be a rock, you might trip on it, you might go down a slope and he starts to slip and fall and shit. And it all plays into not fucking up walking and fucking up like traveling and walking between places, and they start to give you ways to make that easier and more intuitive and better.
I think it was
sorry,
just
Delaila.
too. No, I was just to say I think it was just too long. Like for the main story, like
Yes.
let me like be able to go back to it. There were way too many cities to connect to the chiral network. There could have been like half of it, and the story would have been the same.
I did
and
say
then
this.
like go back to it after. It's gonna be much easier. You got your zip lines, you got all the upgrades, and then you can go to like different places and do cleanup if you want.
I did say this to you guys in Slack, and I'm going to say it here because I really stand by this. The preppers, besides like the first three that you get introduced to, the engineer, the elder, and the other fucking guy, which introduces you to preppers as a concept. There's these other people, they live on their own, we need to connect them and whatnot. Those three at the intro should have been the only preppers that were required.
Right.
There shouldn't have been all the other preppers that you need that are part of the main story. It should have just focused. That would have made the pacing much better, especially those really long chapters. I think they were 3, 5, and 8. Those super, super long chapters that took hours.
Yeah.
Upon hour, all because you're going to these preppers and delivering packages. If they had just made like a really hard delivery or two between main points, like main distribution centers, main cities and stuff. If they have just made like harder deliveries to those places, shortened those chapters significantly, and left the preppers all as like additional side content, the pacing would have been much better, and I feel like we all would have felt better about the mechanics in the game because we would have had less time in between these major points. You know, there's this tough thing I got to do. All right, let me do this. Okay, this is tough. Oh, okay, cool. I got a trike now. Okay, this made it easier for the next few deliveries, and now it's hard again.
Yeah.
If there were less preppers relegated to the main story and they were all just like made side content, I think that would have fixed the pacing issue that this game had, because it took us all about 50 hours to beat. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really long game.
Yep. And that's the story, and there's still so much to do after.
And we talked about how book-ended the story of this game is, how exposition heavy it is at the top and how resolution heavy it is at the bottom, and there's very little in between outside of you meet up with this character, they give you their backstory, and then they point you in the right direction. With some variations, you know, Mama made it a little interesting, albeit frustrating, and I feel like we've all already said like the worst part or our least favorite part of this game. I think we all forgot to mention the worst part of this game is the 2 sections where you have to completely backtrack.
Yes.
The bit where you go into the mountains, which suck to traverse into,
Literally,
to find Lochna, and she's like, "I won't talk to you."
Across the entire game.
And then
my God,
I didn't even realize initially. I didn't really know where to go after that. I didn't realize that I probably should have just picked up on it. Once I looked it up, I felt super stupid because it should have been super obvious. But you have to go all the way back to Mama, and then you have to carry her all the way there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right after you leave her base and the Hig shows up and gives you a boss fight, apparently you were supposed to just run away from that.
Yeah.
I fought it, and after that, Mama's condition was down to like 3%.
Oh my God.
I had to be super careful taking her to Lochna's, because like if I just took a single bad fall off of like the smallest cliff, she would die.
You must have gotten like a C rank on that.
I did. I absolutely did. Because Higgs's BT just like fucked her up. I should have just like put her in the base and left her there. No, I had her on my back the entire time.
I did too, but at least by then you were connected to the chiral network and could use like other players' zip lines and safe houses and shit.
Yeah, I nobody really had set up many zip lines at the time that I was in that chapter. But yeah, and then even worse than that was after the bit out west, and you have to go all the way back. And I thought east just meant east of the central area. So like, what was that? Port or Lake Knot City? No, you get to Lake Knot City. There's the Vietnam section, and then you come back, and you're in the eastern part. And it's like, yeah, you gotta come back here. And then they make it worse by having like non-stop timefall that's like stronger than it ever was.
Yeah,
and you have to carry these fucking worms to Fragile, so that, which you probably already have like a supply of like over 100 by that point in the game. You have to carry this box of worms. BTs. Yeah, there's unavoidable BTs, constant timefall. Your packages are constantly getting beat up by this rain.
Basically,
and you can't build any structures.
Yeah, unless you happen to go into that section with a bunch of repair spray already, you had to either use a truck or you were fucked. There was no way.
I think I had nothing. I think I had to traverse it, and I just barely made it to the boss.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Everything was still intact. But those backtracking sections were hands down the worst sections of the game.
Here's my final thoughts on like the general gameplay and the idea of making it focused on like being a mailman, porter, delivery, whatever. I was not a huge fan of like the focus on like the over encumbrance mechanics and the micromanagement and whatnot.
And that's totally fine.
And what I think I might have preferred, and I might not have minded them as much, if the game wasn't like just a giant sandbox with, you're just basically running to and fro, occasionally running into a dumb environmental obstacle, or like every once in a while. If Kojima had put more time into maybe designing more, not necessarily claustrophobic, smaller, more honed designed environments, and making it more of a horror game, utilizing the BTs and making their mechanics more complex, and basically making it not Resident Evil, but like more survival game in terms of you still have to get this package to your destination, but you're trying to make your way through these kind of really scary elements that infest the world, and put more of a focus on that. I think I might have enjoyed this game a lot more. I just was like, the massive open world that ultimately felt empty, and like these kind of social mechanics, they didn't interest me at all.
Well, the problem is Kojima has already said that he can't ever go back to not open world.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
He just after Metal Gear Solid 5, that's just his thing now. He loves working with the concept, and I agree. I think it's kind of a shame. I think he made really, really good, unique, tight spaces that were still interesting to go through.
And I mean, I find it even more of a shame in this will, I guess, in like our next topic or two, in terms of Kojima's future, where I think he should go. And I think he would be vastly more successful, and there would be more of a consensus surrounding the game, but then not this game, whatever his next game would be.
Right. We didn't mention much about that. This kind of goes into combat a bit, but the weaponization of body fluids.
Yeah, it's funny.
Blood, I think, worked as a concept, and that was pretty unique in and of its own.
That was a cool resource. I did like that. If of all the micromanagement stuff, I liked the fact that you had to use weapons against the BTs to your own detriment.
Yes.
Yeah, me
and,
too.
And that also kind of ties back in with the stealth genre of the best way to go about this is to not go about it at all. Just avoid them, sneak through them,
and
don't
again,
engage them.
That's a survival horror mechanic. You had to use ammo in Resident Evil to your own detriment because you were basically
much.
Right, exactly.
I would say it's a little column A, little column B, because there were definitely stealth mechanics that really came out during those BT sections and also the mule sections a little bit, but I still don't really know what the other bodily grenades did.
I didn't use them really at all. Yeah,
I would bring.
Oh, the ones that you shit and piss out.
Yes, the shower water, the pee grenades, and the poop grenades. All they really seemed to do was like make the monsters recoil and like go into the ground and then come up again like in another part. Like it just made them recoil a little bit, and like none of them really seemed to be different from one another. Like the shower grenades didn't do anything different than the poop grenades from what I noticed, and I used all three of them. Like not a whole lot. Again, I didn't really find them doing much other than making the monsters recoil. Maybe they were all meant to be the same, and it was just like, yeah, it might be easier for you to make one over the other. Maybe you eat a lot of cryptobiotes, so making poop grenades is a lot easier for you. Or maybe you drink a shit ton of Monster, and peeing is your forte. Or maybe you just get down and dirty with those BTs, and you're just covered in mud all the time. And I don't know. I don't really. I never really found a difference between them. It was kind of like a funny thing at first.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't know the difference either, to be honest.
Just thank God we didn't get an EX grenade number 3. That would be that other bodily fluid that might or might not come out of Norman Reedus.
What is that? Boogers?
No, not boogers.
Oh, semen.
There we go. Yeah.
Well, I'm so innocent.
Jesus.
Which one? Boogers?
You kids.
Maybe there should have been an EX grenade number 4. Norman Reedus catches a cold, blows his snot into a vial.
Man, who knows? I mean, they're alone all the time in Walking Dead. Who knows what he's doing?
So
when nobody else is looking.
So speaking of Monster, and this is kind of the last thing I want to talk about before we move on to the final question I want to propose. I thought the Monster bit was fine because Kojima traditionally, starting with Metal Gear Solid 3, we had Calorie Mate was featured in Metal Gear Solid 3, and that's an actual product in Japan.
Right.
That you can get. I actually, I know this is an audio show, but I have a box right here.
Didn't we have like ramen or cup noodle in Metal Gear Solid 2?
No.
That was in Final Fantasy 15, though.
Final Fantasy 15 had like cup noodle, which is another example of a mainstream game having product placement. Metal Gear Solid 4 also had like multiple different product placements. It had Calorie Mate. It also had Regain, which is an energy drink in Japan. I believe it had another major product in Japan in the game. Oh, it also had a fully usable iPod.
Yes.
You use an iPod with the circular control menu from like the mid 2000s, fully usable in Metal Gear Solid 4. Just
I
how
used it all the time. Yeah.
And which, frankly, I feel this game specifically really needed. The fact that I could only listen to music in my fucking private room really sucked. But. Yeah. Or when there's a dramatic moment when I'm approaching a facility for the first time and Low Roar comes on like a fucking music video. Yeah, this game could have really used that. But like product placement, it's like nothing new to Kojima games. And the Monster deal didn't really bother me. It's the first time like an American product is like there instead of a Japanese one, which is interesting. And it makes sense thematically since this game takes place in America. But
probably also needed some money to start up a studio.
But Ride with Norman Reedus Straight
Oh,
up
yeah.
AMC show ads.
Hey, it worked. I didn't even know that was a thing.
And once you and also the collectibles, those fucking I don't even memory chips. There's a memory chip that I found. I don't know if you guys found it.
I found one. It was a God of War soundtrack, like the 2017
Okay.
or 8, whatever, 18 one.
Yeah. One of the ones that I found, because there were some motorcycle ones. One of the ones I found was actually, instead of just being a memory chip that gave you a collectible, it also unlocked a new bike for you, and it was a reverse trike that had the Ride with Norman Reedus logo on it.
Jeez.
And it gets better. If you ride that trike, when Sam jumps onto it and starts riding, he says, I'm not fucking kidding you. Go load up the game, find that fucking thing, and do it yourself. I'm not kidding. He says, wow, this thing should be on Ride with Norman Reedus. Fucking awesome. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I got to my next destination. I put it in the garage and I never touched it again. I'm like, I cannot believe that just happened. Norman Reedus just gave his own show a fucking bumper.
See, there's a reason Solid Snake barely talked when you're...
Guillermo del Toro also gave his movie The Shape of Water a shout out in one of the interviews.
Yeah, there's.
I was like, fuck that movie. I hate that movie.
I actually really want to watch that movie. Katie.
Oh my god,
Katie,
it's just about. Yeah, it's just about bestiality. That's it. A blind woman fucks a fish. That's the story.
Jesus Christ.
Katie watched that movie and said it was terrible, not terrible, just weird. But I still really want to watch it.
This just adds, and I should disclose in my hatred of Dead Man, that I do have a Guillermo del Toro bias. I have beef with him. He kind of fucked the production of the Hobbit movies.
No.
I like those movies.
No. The first two were okay. The last one was just fucked. But the first two were okay. But he kind of basically he screwed it over at the last minute and left. And yeah, there's a whole thing. I don't want to get into it.
He had to go be in Death Stranding, dude. God.
Dude, this was like 8 years ago.
Show the man some respect.
Anyway,
but yeah, like the Ride with Norman Reedus just that made me cringe. And like besides that, like some of the collectibles, like I found a memory chip that was the poster for the movie Christine, which is based on the Stephen King book Christine, about a car that gets possessed and tries to kill everyone.
Oh, great.
Which is just like, oh, that's really interesting. And like there was another one was probably the most interesting one I found was the album, an album by Silent Poets. And it even says in the little blurb about it that, like, as soon as Kojima heard this song, he immediately contacted the record label to ask for permission to use it in one of the Death Stranding trailers, and it was used in this Death Stranding trailer that was debuted at this time. And I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. Like, I was hoping that some more of the collectibles would go more into like the history of like just little behind the scenes tidbits of like, oh yeah, Kojima saw this thing and it really inspired him to do this or something. But some of them were just kind of wasted and dumb, in my opinion. I didn't find all of them yet, but
no, me either.
Some of the ones that I did find, they were so hit and miss. The Ride with Norman Reedus one being a huge miss.
Yeah, I definitely bought 3 monsters.
What?
After playing this game, I bought three monsters. I still have one in my fridge.
Oh, you had like a bunch of things to like deliver to like your friends and stuff, and you were like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough energy for this. I better pound a monster on my way.
I don't know if I can cross this creek. I might have to drink a Monster Energy to cross this 2-foot creek.
You could fill up the monster with water. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like if you walk across the river, your canteen fills up with Monster.
Yeah.
Well, do you have Dooms?
Yeah.
I think your
then
Dooms.
how would you know? Yeah.
I think your Dooms connects to your canteen and refertilizes. I don't know. Carbonates the water and
refertilizes. What is Norman Reedus like jacking off into his water canteen to turn into Monster Energy?
Maybe that's what EX grenade number 3 is.
Jesus.
But All right, is there anything else you guys want to bring up before we go to the final question?
I just want to know what you guys thought of the like system.
Oh yeah, we didn't really talking about the strand genre. We didn't really talk about much about the social stuff. I thought the likes were going to be a currency, and all they really are is like an arbitrary point system that like sort of levels up your porter grade, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of disappointing.
There was like some explanation to it in the interviews that I read, clearly, where people were basically like there's some kind of hormonal deficiency because people don't have contact with other humans because they're isolated, and so
You read way too many of these.
I know. For that reason,
It's
like
good. She's our talking encyclopedia.
Humanity was like asexual and could only be attracted to someone through emotions. And so what wind up happening is the likes secrete this hormone called oxytocin or something like that. That I'm sorry. It like.
No, it's not you. Here's the thing: this is such an over explanation for something as simple as if you get likes on social media, you get instant gratification. It feels good to get likes on a thing that you post on Twitter. Like it just
in real
feels
life,
good.
yeah.
And like this is
it's actually a chemical in your brain that is secreted when you see that somebody else has given you gratification.
Yeah, that's all based in reality. He doesn't have to come up with some ridiculous explanation for like
or he could just say it's like fucking Mario. You pick up a fucking coin in Mario and you get a point.
But I genuinely thought they were going to be like a currency. But it turns out, no, it's just like, oh, you're asexual and they make you feel better. It's like, come on, man. Like,
it turns out, and watch in the next Death Stranding, I'll be like, it turns out the social media, the likes, it's all the la-la-lu-la-lo. The la-la-lu-la-lo.
The la-la-lu-la-lo. Metal Gear. Yeah, it was just like so absurd that he had to come up with an explanation for instant gratification from social media.
That's why mules were like obsessed with delivering cargo, because like the Carillium, like it basically like made them go hysteric and obsessed with like getting likes.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like just like strand was used for like 6 different things, the word chiral was used for like 3 or 4 in different ways. And like if you watch Breaking Bad, it's explained in like the first or second episode, like chiral mirror images.
It's a chemistry.
Yeah, it's a chemistry term. Yeah. But like just throwing the word chiral network, chiralium, the chirality of all this. Even the chiral crystals are fucking hands.
Yeah.
Which
speaking of,
I would argue is actually kind of clever, but like the fucking word is just used for so many different things.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason.
Speaking of mules, and this is one last thing before we get to the final point. Speaking of the mules, I kind of feel like story-wise they were underutilized. Like I thought it would have been a really cool like subplot, or maybe even part of like the main plot, if like the mules were kind of like the mutant gang in The Dark Knight Returns, and like Sam Porter has to like confront their leader and then inspire them and take lead and show them the ways of being a true porter, and like. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the mules.
Something to add
fragile.
something. Well, she's not the leader of
the mules are pretty much independent. The terrorists, on the other hand, the leader of them, I think, is pretty much supposed to be Higgs.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the terrorists. I'm just talking about the mules.
The terrorists are mules that no longer care about delivering packages. They just have like a bloodlust.
Oh, okay, whatever.
Well, no,
anyway.
It's a little column A, low column B. I don't know.
They want you to kill them so that more holes can be created on the Earth.
I will say, you're right. Okay, so I will agree. They're underutilized. They're basically just there to give a human threat as opposed to the supernatural threat that is the BTs. But I don't know. I didn't really want more. I actually kind of would have wanted less from them in their current state. I didn't really want more involved. Like I said, if what I wanted was less of the even just like the preppers, which I think this game severely needed. Like it definitely needed less of the mules as well. If not, just completely get rid of them outright.
That's a good point.
But they did want they very clearly also like there needed to be another threat besides the BTs, and the easiest thing to do is humans. But fuck, they're called mules, and they're addicted to delivering packages.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they used to actually have jobs,
Yeah,
and those
I know
jobs were
that.
taken away from them. And
Yeah,
so
that was a very obvious, like, not jab, but like reference to like the Rust Belt and like
Amazon Go.
yeah, basically Die Hard Man gives like a whole spiel about that.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, a lot of the explanations in this game just made my eyes roll.
I
I'm
loved
dead,
it.
man.
It's so nebulous.
It's mostly with the names. I'm dead, man. I work with the dead. I'm very familiar with them. And then later, oh, it's basically because I'm made of dead people parts. Like, fucking Christ.
Yeah.
And Heartman, I'm Heartman. I go into cardiac arrest. Like my heart literally ceases every 21 minutes. My name's Heartman. Nice to meet you.
I think we can all agree, slimmer, more focused, and I think the one area we might disagree on is like I would have preferred a more not streamlined and not even necessarily a little less open, but like a more honed and like survival horror type experience, more focused on like the BTs and like maybe the terrorists, like. And then maybe I wouldn't have minded the micromanagement as much, although I still would have preferred a little less of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why at the top of I tried to say this earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone. And I'll say it. I'll make this the ending point. It's just bookending this whole discussion by saying this is exactly why your mileage may vary with this game, and why it's so divisive. Is like. There are people that really love that loop of delivering things and micromanaging your inventory. There's people that really hate it, and it makes sense. Like, both sides make sense.
Yeah.
It's really not it's really not a game that everyone's just going to universally adore. And that's kind of why it's so contentious about its, nominations at the Game Awards and people saying it's Game of the Year. I don't think that anyone should be saying that it doesn't deserve it if they haven't played it, which happens to be the majority of the people making that argument. But this game is just, it's bizarre, it's unique, it's weird, and it's fun if you like it.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. Like, I usually hate games that micromanage, like The Sims. But the only reason why I think I liked it is because it fit into the lore, and the lore is very good and deep and progresses throughout the entire game. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have liked it.
The writing less so, but the lore is really, it's really phenomenal. There's a lot of it. It's really dense. And
lore is interesting.
If you have any questions, I guess you're gonna have to call up Delaila, since she read all the interviews apparently.
I know what Ludens is.
Yeah, he's the mascot of Kojima Productions.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. Well, what's up?
Oh,
do you have one more point?
I was just gonna say, as always, I give my score with 5 being average, and I give this game 6.5.
Okay, thank you.
Out of 10?
Yes.
No, out of 5.
Oh, okay, IGN.
I actually wasn't even thinking about that. That is what I gave it.
No, they gave it like a 6.8, I think.
Oh.
It was it was like in the 6s for sure, but I don't think it was 6.5. It doesn't matter.
And by the way, it's an above average game.
I'd give it an 8 because
I might give it a 7. I don't know. I'm somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7.
I'd say 8 if I had to give it a score, because some of the writing really fell flat for me, but I was on the really high side of loving the gameplay loop and loving the traversal, loving the social system of, oh, I have to go out, I'll bring this stuff. Oh, I don't even need it. Look at all these people that have already built these structures. Let me throw them some likes, and let me help this person out by like upgrading this thing. Let me go throw some materials on a road. That all really just clicked for me. And
I would give it an 8 too, but this game is a perfect example as to why you need to read reviews and not just look at the scores. Because like it really
Yes.
depends on you as a gamer.
You have to find reviewers that you trust and read their content. Don't just look at a number.
Or even if you don't trust them, like just see what they're saying and like make your own thought based on their perspective. Like, oh wait, actually I might like that aspect of it even though they hate it.
I would also say this game is the reason we need demos again. Like we need, I miss demos and demo discs, and like if someone just got their hands on this game from a free demo disc for like an hour, like it might inform a purchasing decision.
Yes.
True.
I changed my mind. I'm Angry Joe. I'm gonna give it a 6.
Okay.
After everything negative I said, I can't in good conscience give it a 6.5 or 7. It has to be 6.
Okay.
I'm being nice. I'm giving it a Kojima bump because if I was really being an asshole, I'd give it. If I was really being an asshole, I'd give it a 4 or 5.
All right, let's move on to the final question because we got to wrap up. The final question I want to propose is, Kojima did mention lately that he wants to work on a. I mean, we knew he wanted to work on a survival horror game. It kind of got botched, but we know he also recently said that he wants to work on one next. But he's also said there's other two things that have been said recently. He said that Kojima Productions is eventually going to make movies.
Mm-hmm.
And
which he will horribly fail at.
And he also has an idea or a few ideas for a Death Stranding sequel. So my question is, and also it should be mentioned that Death Stranding is getting ported to PC. It will not be a PS4 exclusive come summertime. It's coming to PC, being published on PC by 505 Games. And who knows what the future of Kojima Productions holds when it comes to PlayStation and Sony. But yeah, what's the next thing from Kojima and Kojima Productions? Is it a movie? Is it a survival horror game? Or is it another Death Stranding? What do you guys think?
I just don't want another Death Stranding.
I don't think we need one.
No.
This story got wrapped up really nicely.
Stay where it is.
Maybe make a movie about Higgs.
Ooh. Delaila. Like, I feel like every episode you say something that I'm just like, ooh. I like that a lot.
Tell me more.
Yes. I would actually be really into a movie about Higgs.
The only way I'd be interested in seeing a Kojima Productions movie is if in the credits it just said story by Kojima, and then it was written by an actual screenwriter and directed by an actual director.
Well, I just think that should happen. That should happen no matter what they do in the future. In terms of maybe games, I don't know, but like in terms of film, definitely. Like that's what the original Star Wars, well, with the exception of A New Hope, that's what like made Empire great. It was a collaboration of George Lucas coming up with a great story, Gary Kurtzman directing it, and Laura's cast and writing a great script adapting it. You know what I'm saying? Right.
I keep using Star Wars fucking references. I always use Star Wars references.
It's the month for Star Wars. Let's be real.
It is basically Star Wars month.
I'm looking forward to that train wreck.
Jesus Christ.
But,
anyway,
what is he gonna do next? I have no idea. What should he do next? A survival horror game.
Yeah.
That's what I honestly think he would be best at.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. And if I would love to see him collaborate with Guillermo del Toro again, especially if he goes that route.
Yeah.
I hope that it's a little more reined in and not open world. Or if it is open world, I hope it's something akin to like The Evil Within 2, where it's like an open world-ish. It's not that big. It's not that obtrusive, and it's manageable. Like that, yes. I would be okay with. This, I don't want to play a survival horror game that takes me 50 hours to beat.
Oh my god! Imagine if he teamed up with Miyazaki. Oh my god!
So.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I might have to go change my pants.
I wonder if he's going to work with Junto Ito, who does a lot of horror manga, which would be a really interesting Kojima-like concept
Yeah,
Didn't
for a
he?
horror game.
Didn't he write and draw Uzumaki?
Yeah, Uzumaki,
Yeah.
Gyo, Tomoe.
Uzumaki actually looks really interesting to me. That art style is creepy and frenetic and fantastic. Yeah, that could be really cool. I agree. I would like him to do. I would hope that he would do the survival horror thing. I just hope that he doesn't do it like he did Death Stranding.
No, do it like PT, bro.
Yeah, bro. Okay. It's time to wrap up. Thank you for listening to this episode of Reap the Spoils. I know it's clocking in at a little over 2 hours. But we hope that the conversation was interesting enough to keep you interested, keep you hooked. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Nibelheimi, and you can follow Delaila on Twitter at Assassina_san. You can follow Jason at Twitter at SolidQuaz, but don't follow him on Twitter.
Or can you?
Delaila, do you have anything to plug?
Not really. Just be a homo ludin. Don't be a homo religious. And don't be a homo Logans. Okay.
What?
I'm done. It's more.
We also have a Facebook group. Search it. Just search Dead Cell Media. You can
I
find
got
the Facebook
so
group.
scared. I thought you were about to go somewhere completely different.
Yeah,
And then we would have been like internet pariah.
we're moving on from that. I
Yeah,
can't.
What the fuck?
If you liked this episode, if you like the show, please share with your friends, share with your colleagues, share with your family, share with your dog, your cat, your pet bear if you have one, if you're in like Canada or something. Comment.
By the way, also check out Delilah's Twitch stream.
Yes.
You get a sticker, and that sticker is like a industrial stick. They don't make sticker.
Wait,
Folks,
Delaila, are you still sending people stickers?
I could if they want it.
Okay.
I still have some.
Guess what? They haven't made stickers like that since the old Ford days, before we outsourced stickers to China.
So
Okay.
go.
That sticker is pretty sticky.
That sticker transcends time like Carillium.
It's also very well designed.
If you follow Delaila on Twitter at Assassina_san, Assassina_san, sorry, you can probably find out when she's streaming on Twitch. Go pay her some attention on Twitch. Watch her play video games. Yeah, when I say plugs, I mean like plug your Twitch too. Come on, like
I know. It's just I've been slacking lately, so I don't feel empowered.
You got you got the most going on out of the three of us when it comes to like plugging shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Share the show, please. Let a person know how we are, and if you do like the show, please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify if you can. I'm not sure if Spotify has some sort of rating system, but leave us a review, 5 stars preferably. Obviously, that would be fantastic. Throw us a sub on YouTube or like on YouTube. Comment on YouTube. Wherever you listen to the show, give us some positive reinforcement. It makes us happier to do this month after month.
Also, leave us suggestions if there's anything you guys would like to see, any specific type of games you would like us to go over, or any special kind of little side things you would like us to do. Let us know. We are listening.
I might start ending the show with a fun fact because I just learned something. Apparently, you can flash messages on Skype, like Delaila just did, to give us an explanation of the ridiculous thing she said.
Yeah.
I didn't read it. I was too busy being marveled at the fact that you could do that at all.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say is that our December game, we weren't originally going to do a December episode, but we all really wanted to play this game, so we are going to do an episode by the end of December. And that game that we will be playing is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. To coincide with the fact that there is a new Star Wars movie coming out. Also, Disney Plus came out recently. The Mandalorian is really excellent. There's lots of Star Wars going on right now.
I went on the set with Jon Favreau to watch them make The Mandalorian.
So
it's like Boba Fett.
Star Wars is at its peak right now, so we will be playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Also, expect a bonus episode coming from us very soon about some Game of the Decade discussions.
Yeah.
All right, and
That should be fun.
yeah, this was the latest episode, the Death Stranding episode of Reap the Spoils. I'm Mark Sullivan.
I'm Delaila Lugo.
Jason Kwasnicki.
Goodbye.
How you doing?